Welcome to Immigreats, the podcast that highlights stories of immigrants making great contributions in their adopted countries. My name is Munatsi and I'm your host. I was born and raised in Zimbabwe and now live in Texas, USA with my family. Before getting into today's episode, I'm excited to share a word from our sponsor, grateful for the friends at Alma Law in Dallas, Texas. Alma Law is one of the United States' top immigration law firms. They're a great resource for immigrants that are already in the United States and for people that are looking for professional assistance to move to the United States. I can confirm that the process of moving to the United States can seem daunting. And so it's important to have a friend like Alma Law on your side if you're starting on that process. Alma Law specializes in handling all manner of immigration cases, from J-1 physician visas, investor and entrepreneur visas, family immigration issues, temporary employment, special petitions, permanent resident adjustments, and employer-related compliance. You can call them in the U.S. on 972-573-8575, or you can email them at help@alma-law.com to schedule a consultation. You can also visit their website at alma-law.com for more information. That's alma-law.com. Check them out. They've been great. My guest today is an impressive gentleman who was born in Cameroon, but has lived in the United States for over 20 years now. His name is Arrey Obenson, and he's got an impressive resume. When I found out about Arrey online and got to read about what he's been able to do and his extensive resume, I immediately added him to the list of people that I wanted to interview for this podcast. And I'm grateful that he did say yes. And so it's my pleasure to welcome you to Immigreats, Arrey. I hope things are going well for you. I hope the weather's not too crazy up there in St. Louis. But welcome to Immigreats, Arrey. Thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much, Munatsi, for giving me the opportunity to be part of this conversation. And weather-wise, we're having an unusually warm winter, so I can't complain. I don't want to jinx it.
It's been the same for us here in the North Texas area. So yeah, let's not jinx it for sure. Tell us, Arrey, who is Arrey? Love to hear your backstory a little bit and just learn about the journey you've traveled starting in Cameroon as a very young boy.
You said it. I'm originally from Cameroon, born in the coastside city of Limbe, Cameroon, which is along the Atlantic Ocean on one side and Mount Cameroon on the other side. So it's the volcanic part of Cameroon. So occasionally we get eruptions. Cameroon, obviously, many people do not know, is a bilingual country. So we were colonized in one part by the French and another part by the English. I come from the English-speaking side of Cameroon. I call myself a true product of Cameroon. I was educated from primary education right up to a university level in Cameroon, graduating from Yaoundé University and going into legal practice in Cameroon and practicing law there for 7 years. But the turning point in my life really came when I started practicing in Limbe, the city where I was born. I had the opportunity to get involved in community development work through an organization that I volunteered in called Junior Chamber International. And really that opened my eyes to our responsibility as citizens to not be spectators, but actors in our common destiny. And this was an organization whose mission is to provide young people with the opportunity to develop leadership capabilities. And so joining this organization in my local community, I really did get involved in one project that was life-changing for me, which I think eventually led to me moving to the US, was really working at the age of 26 to completely transform a local hospital, a hospital that served 150,000 people a year that had been functioning for close to a decade without toilets. And when I found that out, I as a young person, with barely enough to make ends meet. I recall I was, at the time we did this project, I was living in a house where you had to cross a bridge to get to that house. And sometimes when it rained, my home would be flooded. But having the recognition that in the community in which I lived in, there was a hospital that was a health hazard for everybody, I I just couldn't not do anything about it. And so we mobilized young people. We were able to raise close to $60,000 to transform the hospital. And immediately it told me that I was built for something else rather than sitting in law courts and making money for other people. And so immediately I started trying to build this not-for-profit organization across my country, driving around Cameroon and trying to mobilize young people to join an organization that enabled them to develop a leadership capacity, that enabled them to get involved in the development of their communities rather than waiting for somebody else to do it for them. You're young, the future belongs to you, your community belongs to you, get involved. And so we started working toward that as a community and created 9 other local organizations across the country. And as a result of that, I was invited by the headquarters of the not-for-profit organization in the United States to move to the United States and help develop this organization across Africa.
Okay. So this organization is the Junior Chamber International.
Junior International.
And that's the organization that is essentially led to you moving to the United States.
Correct.
Okay. So tell me about what role essentially you took on when you moved to the United States. Is the headquarters of the Junior Chamber International here in the US, and is that where you moved into head office when you came over?
Yes. So practically in Cameroon, we had 65 members when I joined Junior Chamber International. And within a year, we had grown from 65 members to 535 members.
Oh, wow.
And so obviously headquarters took notice of that and reached out to say, what have you been doing in Cameroon? And basically I explained this and they said, do you want to do this for Africa? So I made a decision to give up legal practice and accept this role as director for Africa and to grow this organization in Africa.
Okay.
My hope was that if we could develop more leaders across Africa, we could change the trajectory of development for Africa. And so when I came to the organization, we had about 6,500 members in Africa.
Okay.
And what I did was essentially spend time developing this organization across Africa. So we went, within 5 years, we went from 14 countries in Africa to 33 countries, including 2 countries in the Middle East, which we Lebanon and Syria. And actually we added a third, and Jordan as well. So we expanded from 14 to 33 countries, and we grew the membership from 6,500 to 14,000 in 5 years. And basically, many people make the misunderstanding. The world has misunderstood Africa's young people. And many people think that African young people are just waiting for a handout. And even the strategy of the organization was telling people the benefits that they get from joining the organization. But my strategy was a little bit different, reminding people of their responsibility. And because of that responsibility, they had to go find or invest in the skill sets that was necessary for them to take up leadership responsibility in Africa, because that's what Africa needs. Yeah. For all the aid that has gone to Africa, for all the boreholes that were built to provide water, what we really need to be investing in is investing in human resources, not from certificates that we have people memorize to take exams, but giving people the opportunity to have the experience that will help them manage development projects and activities across Africa. So we focused a lot on not just classroom conversations or meeting room conversations, but even worked on but projects that gave people hands-on approach. Like I had experience working to transform a hospital that was in need. I say to people that gave me the experience of 2 MBAs, and I've never sat in an MBA classroom. But every aspect of the MBA course was experienced in running one community project, from leadership to financial capability to strategic planning. all of those things, you get those hand-on experience in running just one project. And so that's how we were able to attract a lot more young people to be part of this organization. And then consequently, seeing what we had done in Africa, the organization said, well, if you can do this in Africa, why not do this across the world? And so I got moved from director of Africa to executive director for growth around the world. And the first thing I did was, let's develop a strategic plan based on this concept that we had. And so we kind of developed an organization, transformed the organization from one that was so focused on sharing what benefits and opportunities young people had for joining the organization to one that was more impact oriented, creating an opportunities for young people to come and make an impact in their communities. And through this exercise, we developed a framework which I'm hoping that the world is going to continue using or should use. And it is called the Active Citizen Framework. And the Active Citizen Framework was based on the experience that, I traveled around the world, been blessed to visit about 100 countries. But in my travels, I kept on asking people who had succeeded, especially I went to Yokohama, Japan, and I could learn how young people had transformed the city of Yokohama into Japan's biggest shipping port. People think it's the government, but government only comes after the idea has been built. And everywhere I went, there were 4 things that I saw in every project that had been transformational. The first one was that there was a clear need that was identified. And that need was not identified by somebody outside the community. It was always a need that the community agreed that they had a need. Secondly, it was not one person, one organization, or one sector of society. Successful projects were always projects that included all sectors of society. By all sectors, I mean government, businesses, and the civil society. So that's the 3-legged stool of development, as Bill Gates sometimes calls it, that you need all 3 to really have successful transformation, right? And that there was, at the end of this, a project that was developed, a solution that everybody had buy-in the solution, right? And then there was a plan executed that had some kind of evaluation process. And so we developed what we call the Active Citizen Framework and use that as now our strategy to build the organization. So basically, asking young people across the world to identify a need within their community and to work with community stakeholders to develop a solution that can be implemented over a period of time. So what that did is it transformed the organization from a membership-driven organization to one that was impact-driven. And impact-driven means that the organization is not only known to the members internally, but becomes an active player at the local, national, and at the global level. And so that's how we raised the profile of the organization, made it to become one of the consultative members of the United Nations General Assembly, played a key role in the development of what we call the Sustainable Development Goals, 17 Sustainable Development Goals, by mobilizing about 9 million young people around the world to participate in the surveys that led to the Sustainable Development Goals, and eventually becoming the first not-for-profit organization that adopted and began the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals barely 2 months after their adoption at the United Nations. And so we transformed that organization to become a global player.
That's impressive. That's impressive. There are a couple of things you've touched on, Arrey, that spoke to me on a very personal level. I'm one of those people that agrees with you that any development that is going to happen in Africa and really in any developing country in the world has to start off. It has to be led by the owners of the country, the citizens of the place. The typical kind of foreign aid model that a lot of people have relied on or have expected to solve all the problems really doesn't work unless the aid is coming alongside local leadership, local driven programs and and plans. So the fact that you guys identified a hospital that needed water, that needed toilets, that needed infrastructure development, and you started to do and decided to do something about it is really where it starts. Because when you have got that community ownership, it's really hard to stop that project from succeeding. What we found, and I can speak to my experiences in Zimbabwe, is that whenever we've had kind of an outside entity that's come in and tried to push an agenda, a lot of times the local community, either there's resistance, or if they come alongside, it's really coming alongside of from a perspective of, okay, what's in it for me? If you will pay me, I will go and do that, which is not really a sustainable approach. So I'm really happy to hear you share that and then kind of share the kind of success that you've seen from similar models across the world. The other thing I wanted to touch on is I do spend a bit of time with younger people that I'm mentoring. We've got some project in Zimbabwe we've been running for a number of years where we mentor some younger people and we're helping them get through university, and in some case also helping them get connected to opportunities for work in different parts of the world to the extent that we can. And one of the things I share is I'll get asked a question. Hey, so now that I've decided I'm going to be a lawyer, or now that I've decided that I'm going to get this engineering degree, how do I plan for success in the future? And I love what you touched on too, to say you were trained as a lawyer and that's kind of what you thought was the plan for your life. But because of your activism and your ownership of your own community and the community's problems, that led to you discovering that you had certain giftings that you could apply outside of the typical law career, and you wanted to pursue that. Now, I don't doubt that your training as a lawyer, has been beneficial to you every step of the way in terms of you being able to think strategically, you being able to read and analyze and documents, you being able to write. I'm sure you do a lot of writing in your profession. And so there are lots of skills. And when you're operating in different countries, different jurisdictions with different laws, your ability to think as a lawyer is really helpful. But I just love how it's clearly taken you in a direction you couldn't have imagined. It's taken you to a country that I don't know if you were planning to move to the US when you first started out, or you just thought your life and career would be in Cameroon. So I just really like that you shared that. And I'm emphasizing that because I do know that we get a good number of younger listeners on this podcast, and I want them to understand that. Sometimes you just kind of take the opportunity that's in front of you and do the best with it. And who knows where that will take you. So I really appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes a lot of sense because not in my wildest dreams would I have imagined that I would end up living in the United States. And not only living in the United States, but traveling around the world and helping the world, young people across the world, over 150,000 young people which we engaged in over time, helping them build their communities, develop their own capacity, and make a difference in the world as we go along. And also end up being here in the United States in the role that I currently have, helping develop and build a thriving community here in St. Louis. And all of that, when I started this conversation, it was intentional for me to say I'm a pure product of Africa, a pure product of Cameroon. And because that tells a story, because sometimes it's lost in the conversations. We think the best is always in the West or in the East. But wherever you are, wherever you come from, it's the mindset that's the most important, right? You take the skills that you acquire from school, the experiences. All of us are a sum total of our experiences. So if you do not expose yourself to those meaningful experiences, then you do not develop the mindset and the capacity to make the kind of difference that is needed.
Agreed. No, thank you for sharing that. So you end up staying with the Junior Chamber International here in the US until 2019.
Yes.
And then you kind of took a bit of a career change, so to speak. Can you talk to me about what it is that you moved to in 2019 and a little bit of what you're doing in that role since you assumed it?
Yeah, I always use this analogy that when you arrive any summit, it's usually the beginning of the next climb, right? And after spending 17 years at JCI and traveling extensively around the world, I'm seeing my kids beginning to get up to that age where they were playing soccer and I needed to be around. I kind of figured that it was time for me to step back and do something else. And I wanted to use all of the experience that I had over the years to start supporting other not-for-profit organizations grow the way that we had grown Junior Chamber International, how we built that organization. So I stepped down in August of 2019 not knowing that there was a pandemic that was going to come in. And we created this consulting firm, which we called Transformunity, Transform an Opportunity. We combined those words when we made it Transformunity. And our goal was really to help organizations leverage their opportunity to change the world, like thinking about how do you support organizations to focus on their opportunities as opposed to their challenges. And so that was what we created. So it became a consulting firm, and we were helping organizations develop strategic plans.
Okay.
And fortunately or unfortunately for us, the pandemic came in 2020. And so I basically spent all of the year 2020 at home, working remotely, doing my consulting work. But I also spent that 9 months of the year 2020 writing a book, which I published in January of 2021. And the title of the book is Bridging the Opportunity Gap. I hope you don't mind the publicity here.
Absolutely. Go for it.
But the premise of the book is based on this key that individuals, organizations, or even countries that focus on their challenges become defined by their challenges, whilst individual organizations or countries that focus on their opportunities become defined by their opportunities. And the book catalogs experiences. I think use a well-known experience between Sears and Amazon. And what people fail to see is that Amazon is the Sears of modern day, right? Because Sears was the first company in the world that developed a printed catalog that you could order whatever you wanted and was delivered to your home. It was not as fast. It used the mail system. And Sears, after 100 years, was seeing its market share decline. And instead of changing its strategy to adopt technology, it kept on trying to build its market based on its old model. So it was focusing on its challenges, and it failed to see the opportunities. On the other hand, Amazon has just been capitalizing on new technologies, looking at the opportunity and scaling up from just selling books to selling almost everything because it has the infrastructure to do so. So I put out that book. Just as I was finishing writing the book, somebody reached out to me and shared an opportunity, which is the International Institute of St. Louis was looking for a president and CEO. And I decided to dig into the organization, and it led me to the conversation that we're having now, because I found out that it was an organization that was providing opportunities for immigrants and refugees to help them succeed when they arrive St. Louis, and had been doing that for 100 years. But as I read more and dug deeper into why the organization exists, and not just what the organization was doing, I saw a bigger opportunity. And that opportunity for me, and you're going to hear me say opportunity over and over and over, was that I keep saying it, that whilst I thought that the position was to serve people in need, I saw an organization that had to serve a community in need, meaning that the opportunity was not just in mobilizing this community to support, to give handouts to immigrants and refugees. The opportunity was instead in bringing immigrants and refugees here so that they could contribute to the development of this community. And that completely, since I got into the organization, has changed the dynamics of the organization. And I can talk to you more about what we've done in the last 3 years.
Oh, wow. Okay. No, that's fascinating. That's a space that like I told you earlier, that I occupy somewhat. Most of the work that I've done, that I do even now, is more targeted specifically at asylum seekers. But the challenges, or maybe to use your term, the opportunities are similar in many ways. And so I think even kind of offline when we're done with this interview, I'm going to want us to stay in touch and talk more about some of the things you're doing, because there's a lot of overlap right there, which is fantastic. You ended up, I believe, in 2022, were awarded the Great Immigrant, Great American Award by the Carnegie Corporation of New York. Congratulations for that, first of all. Can you just talk to us about a little bit about what that means, who is typically awarded such an honor, and that just for context and for everybody to be able to understand how much of a big deal that is.
Well, it's such a big deal because it came to me first of all as a surprise. I didn't know that I was doing anything to capture anybody's attention, especially the reputable organization like the Carnegie Corporation that has for over 100 years been identifying and recognizing really outstanding people. Robert Einstein and the rest have been recognized as great immigrants, great Americans. And the list goes on, but almost as you think about it from celebrity standpoint, significant number of Americans have come from different parts of the world that made a huge difference in America. So for me, that was just to be listed amongst those people that have had this recognition was something that was significant, but it's one of the milestones in the road that we achieve, and it has just been a motivator for me that I must be doing something right to help develop this country.
No, I think you are doing a lot of things right, for sure. So really, really glad you got that honor. I definitely feel like you're a deserving recipient, and something tells me you're not done making an impact on this country and beyond. You started, I think, probably going back about 10 years ago. You helped found an organization called the Am Cameroon, or Je suis le Cameroun organization, which is, I want to learn more about that. Can you just talk to us about what led to you guys founding this organization, and what do you do through this organization?
Yes, this has been my let me just say my side hustle, right? Because as I traveled around the world and helped communities around the world do amazing things, right? I kept on asking myself, the fact that I have an extract from Cameroon, has that been a disservice to my country, right? It's something that I've always wrestled with, and I will continue to wrestle with. But I had seen something that was a movement happening in Africa which is a culmination of everything that I'm seeing now. Is that it all started with what happened in Libya with Gaddafi. And I was seeing that there was growing radicalism in Africa's young people, whether that was good or bad. But what I felt it was that one could capture that essence, that radicalism, and channel it in a way that was positive rather than destructive, right? And so I started brainstorming with a group of people to say, with this increasing number of young people in Africa, how can we create a platform where young people see themselves as playing a part in defining their own future in their country? And when I said that, I challenged myself to say it has to start with Cameroon. I recall being in a meeting in Casablanca in Morocco, and speaking to members of JCI who had come from about 40 countries in Africa. And I was saying to them that here we are sitting in Africa and putting on suits in a 5-star hotel room. And outside this hotel room was a continent that was in poverty. And we could give ourselves a pat on the back and accolades to ourselves. But what difference have we made in Africa? That 50 years after our forefathers fought for the liberation of Africa, they gave us the opportunity to sit in this room and represent the different countries of Africa. 50 years later, if we brought those forefathers to this room, will they be satisfied with the progress that Africa has made? Now, they played their part. They gave us the opportunity to be here. What part are we playing to define the future of Africa, so that 50 years later, when young people meet they are celebrating a prosperous Africa because of the work that we did, and not us sitting and condemning the corruption and the poor leadership and all the challenges that we had, poverty and that we face in Africa. But when I said that on that stage, I knew that I had to be the example. And so the example that I wanted to set was, now I'm not responsible for the problems that Cameroon faces, but certainly I can be part of the solution. I can be the solution. And so the name I Am Cameroon essentially means that I am taking ownership of its challenges and its opportunities, and it's up to me as an individual to find a solution to the challenges that we face. So we developed this organization with a mission to inspire, educate, and engage to accept and assume responsibility for the development of Cameroon. We have a vision to mobilize at least 5 million Cameroonians to be part of this movement. And in the last 10 years, we've done incredible stuff, my brother, incredible stuff. Nothing tangible. I don't have skyscrapers that we have built to show you, but I have tens and thousands of young people that we've touched their hearts, that we've changed their mindset, that they have gone to make a difference in their street, in their community, in their business, in their life. And some tangible things that we have done, for example, when COVID hit, and we all thought that Africa was going to be wiped out, right? But Africa dodged that bullet. But instead of us lamenting over the plight that was coming to Africa, what we instead did was I mobilized the diaspora and I threw out this challenge to everybody and said, let's raise $250,000 and send to Africa, to Cameroon, to try to alleviate the impact of. And how did we get to that number? We call healthcare workers. Remember that the people who were dying the most and the people who were scared the most were healthcare workers. And we asked healthcare workers through an elaborate survey what they needed. And everybody said what everybody needed at the time, PPE. And you recall that at the time you couldn't find it anywhere here in the United States, not to talk about in Africa. And so we mobilized resources with connections that I've had around the world. We offer Cameroon, the country of Cameroon, the biggest COVID gift besides the loan that they got from the World Bank that unfortunately was misappropriated. That we put into Cameroon over $250,000 of personal protective material from the gloves, the hand sanitizers, and all of that, so that we could support them. But more than that is that we built a partnership with an organization that had over 80 hospitals across the 10 regions of Cameroon and created a delivery system that included an education in the process. So it was not just a gift, but it was a system that we put in place that enabled and inspired people to participate. Last year, we did something really big and audacious. And we set a goal for ourselves to bring out 5 million people in one day to clean up Cameroon because we are a country full of garbage heaps. The population has outgrown the capacity of the government or local governments to pick up garbage. And we started something, and everybody thought we were insane or crazy to think about that. But we mobilized over 250 local organizations in Cameroon to bring out millions of people on September 16th to probably do what I'm calling the biggest civic action in the history of Cameroon, where people on the same day came out and we pulled out over 200 tons of plastics from rivers, streets, and all of that. Plastics now that we have formed a partnership with a recycling company that is recycling the plastics. And we have put in place a system where every Saturday we have young people going out, pick up plastics, and they're being paid for that. So we didn't only clean up the environment. And I always tell people that this is not about picking up trash. This is about a mindset change. People look at it, oh, you're cleaning that organization that picks up trash. I said, no, it's more than trash. It is making people conscious of our responsibility that we can live, we are human beings, we can live like we're living in pigsties, right? And so these are some things that the Am Cameroon movement has done. It's really to change that mindset. And we are actually thinking of advancing this platform now to Africa and calling it Africa. we had actually, just so there is I am Zimbabwe, I am Zambia, there's I am Gabon, I am Togo, there's I am Senegal. So we have inspired several countries, and now we want to broaden this platform to I am Africa. Boy, we have 800 million opportunities waiting to happen. That's Africa's young people. We need to invest in them.
That's amazing. Truly inspirational to me and to many people who will listen for sure. When I started this podcast, my hope was to be able to find stories that show impact in multiple places. And so what you've been describing and the conversations we're having here are highlighting to me that you've become a truly, great American, somebody that any American should be proud of, while still being a great Cameroonian. And so it doesn't have to be an either or a dichotomy. You can be both, and you're being both. And that's my hope for
and African too.
Yes, and fully African. Exactly. So, and I love it. That's my hope for myself. That's who I want to be, or my own children that are growing up who maybe don't have as strong an emotional connection to Zimbabwe or Africa, but I want them to understand that this is our heritage and that you can be a great Zimbabwean without living in Zimbabwe. We can be a great Africans without necessarily living permanently in Africa. And to an extent, I do feel like we have this responsibility to be those things for the sake of the progress. There's so many things that we're benefiting from living where we live, from the exposure that we've received, and we could truly be a bridge to our brothers and sisters that are in Africa and bring about really positive impact as you guys are doing. So I've really enjoyed this conversation. I feel like you and I could probably talk for hours on end. There's so many different directions we could take the conversation. And so I will definitely be staying in touch with you, Arrey, because I've enjoyed this conversation. As we wrap up, how do people find you? Are you active on social media? What are the best ways if somebody wanted to reach out to learn from you or get to know you, or maybe to set up another conversation with you somewhere? What would be the best way to find you?
Well, all my handles are A. Obenson on LinkedIn, on Instagram, and on X and Facebook. Yeah. So people can find me, inbox me. That's how I think we got connected.
Yes.
So we're out there nowadays. You can't hide. But this is surely I have enjoyed this conversation, and I think that there's a lot more we can dig into that can really help inspire our folks, so that we place Africa on the pedestal that it should be.
That should be. Absolutely. 100%. It's been a pleasure, my brother. Thank you so much, Arrey, for saying yes to doing this, for being so transparent and just sharing your journey. I know I'm inspired, and I'm sure many others will be inspired too. And I do look forward to staying in touch and learning about more of the incredible accomplishments that I'm certain are in your future. So thank you for joining me for this conversation with Arrey Obenson, a truly great Cameroonian, a truly African, and also a truly great American. I hope you've enjoyed learning from him as much as I have, and I look forward to joining you again next time with another cool story or another cool interview. Please like this podcast and follow us on your favorite podcast player so you can catch new episodes as we release them. You can find us on social media under the name Immigreats. You can visit our website at immigreats.net and enter your email address to join the growing Immigreats community. Until next time, see ya. My brother, thank you for your time.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. We'll be in touch.